Estimates suggest that up to 1 in 6 people have a sensory issue of some variety, whether that's hearing loss or sensitive skin or visual impairment or whatever that may be. And these are even more common in those that are gifted or those with learning disorders, whether it be ADHD or autism or dyslexia or autoimmunity or whatever else that may be. In this video, we're going to dive into basically what goes into this, what can we do to help improve it, and why is this a factor in all of these populations. I'm Dr. Jeff Cumro, and over the past 15 years, I've had the pleasure of working with thousands of people. And ultimately in our clinic, what we do is help to optimize brain function and balance out brain and body function, how they're working together to help you put the output that you need. So you get put into any environment, whether that's a learning environment or a new environment or something that's stressful, you can pull those resources that you need to reach that outcome that you need even faster and better. So in these learning disorder, in these sensory issues, they're more common in the learning disorders. Why is that the case? And it's ultimately important to understand, where do these sensory issues come from? Where do these learning disorders come from? And they're both rooted in a similar place. We are born and the body really isn't connected to the brain. We have to kind of integrate all of that. So it's kind of like your phone. You've got to run upgrades on your phone every once in a while to reboot that software and build it up, and it grows and it gets bigger, it gets better, right? It doesn't always get better. That's arguable on a phone update, but you understand what I'm saying. Each one is supposed to be a higher level as we grow and we develop. And the same goes for everything here. Like I said, our sensations really aren't attached to our brain function, and that's ultimately what we have to do when we're born. And this is where we see the developmental milestones, right? We see rolling over, we see walking, we see crawling, we see holding the head up, we see talking. All these different things are milestones, and the CDC has gone through and changed all these milestones since COVID, because they know that what we went through in COVID, the stress that we were under and the mandates that we had, change our development. I think that is totally ridiculous thing to do, because we're going to see an explosion in the number of people that are actually dealing with this. But they're kicking the can down the road, and it is what it is. But we ultimately know what part of the brain is being developed or how the brain is developing as we hit these milestones. It's very, very common for people that are suffering from a learning disorder or autism or autoimmunity or whatever to skip a stage, right? They don't crawl before they walk, or they talk late, or they don't walk on time, or whatever that may be. It's very, very common for them to miss a stage in development. This is ultimately what we're looking at, is that brain development. And the most important area or among the most important areas in all of this, whether it's sensory disturbances or any other missed milestone, is that lower brainstem development. As we start getting that lower brainstem development, we can start developing the layers above that. But until we have that lower level, we really can't build that high, right? And same thing, if you look at the building of a house, you have to have a strong foundation. If you build your house on sand, it's going to fall over in a couple years, right? Same thing happens in the brain. If we don't have a really solid foundation, it's hard to basically develop something for a lifetime of success. So we have to have that underlying development. That's one of the first things that we work to do in our clinic. Why is that? If we don't have that, it's tough to get those upper layers developed, right? So we look at things from the base of development up. And really on any of these things, whether it's sensation, that you got a tag that you just constantly just driving you crazy. Whether it's you get put into an environment that's a little louder and you get anxious, you get just ramped up and you can't pay any attention. All of these things affect learning, right? The classic one would be, if you're sitting in the back of the room and you can't see the board or you can't see what's being written, it's difficult to follow along, right? So glasses are something that we could use to help that out. We don't have a lot of those crutches for other things. We have hearing aids and different things like that can be helpful, but when it comes to over-responsive sensation, what do you do on that? Cutting out the tags, but that doesn't really fix the problem, right? You still have the potential to be distracted. You're not able to pay attention to those things. So integrating all of this stuff, and this is where we throw a lot of different things at the body. We work to stimulate those primitive reflexes. We work to retrain those senses and basically build from the bottom up. Now, where do we run into problems? Why do people with learning disorders have a higher likelihood of having something like this? Again, it is that lower level brain development that goes into this. And the important part in all of this is that lower level brain, or the lower level brainstem, ultimately goes back to challenging your stress and how you respond to stress. If you don't have that lower level brainstem function, it's very difficult for you to calm down. It's very difficult for you to handle a stressful situation, right? Because you're constantly in that stressed, that anxious, that type of output, and that doesn't always work well for what you're in, right? We need to be able to calm ourselves down. We need to be able to respond to stress in a way that's going to decrease our inflammation, decrease our immune function, and allow our bodies to save the resources that they need to do those other things, to develop memories, important for learning, right? To be able to focus, important for learning. To be able to sleep and repair, important for learning. All of those things have to be able to happen, but if we're constantly running through all these other resources, trying to focus and trying to, turn down that anxiety response and trying to do all of these things, if we don't have the resources for it, we don't have the resources for it. It's just like a car. It ends up parked on the side of the road. It doesn't go forward. It doesn't get you to your goal. So very, very important concept here. Now, obviously, this is more in-depth. Anytime we're talking about brain function, it's much more in-depth than anybody's going to dive into in a 5 to 10 minute video, right? So there's a lot that goes into this, and we use a lot of different tools. We use things like sensory stimulation. We use things like laser. We use things like dietary changes. All of these things are important, but we can't just do one thing. Why? Because if we just do one thing, it develops one set of networks within the brain. It doesn't develop all of those others. So you're not going to be able to pull the information that you need for every environment. It might work for one environment, but it's not going to work for all of those different environments. So ultimately, that's why we do what we do. That's how we go about it. Obviously, if you have any questions or want to dive further into this, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. But I know that your attention and your time are your most precious resources. I really, really appreciate you spending some of that with me. If you found this helpful, like or subscribe. It really gives me information as far as what you need and what I can provide to help you get to that next stage. So I love you, I appreciate you, and I'll catch you on next week's video.